Where have they gone? Off to save the realms again, of course. Know ye nothing about the Knights of Myth Draenor, lad? The old man fixed the young boy with a clear, blue-grade stare. Orthan shifted uncomfortably under the level gaze and allowed as he had heard time enough about the knights and all they did for the Dale to keep its folk safe. But we need them not, he blurted. My pa says while Shadowdale still has old Elminster. The beard hid most of the slow smile that answered him. Old Elminster now, is it? Came the familiar and crotchety yet grand old voice. Thinks thy sire I grow feeble with age and weak of mind and art? No, sir, Orthan said uncertainly. Leastways, he's not said so, that I've heard, he added carefully. The old sage nodded. Good, good, he said approvingly. Stick ye always to what ye've heard, and can read in the voice and the looks of folk, and take care not to fill in the gaps with what ye fancy they might be thinking. 'Twill stand ye in good stead as the years pass. Now help me carry this bundle up to the tower, for its safe deliverance there will also stand ye in good stead as the years pass. Orthan sighed and rolled his eyes. Behind Elminster's back, it was not the first time he heard such a grand and fateful statements from the old mage. Elminster turned suddenly on his heel to fix Orthan with a hard stare, and then solemnly rolled his eyes just as Orthan had done. The lad shrank back with a gasp. So it was true! The old man did have eyes in the back of his head. He quaked, awaiting dire magical punishment. Elminster chuckled softly. Take care also, young Orthan, not to show in thy face what ye would not have held back at ye. Keep it hidden for thine own safety. This too will stand ye in. His voice trailed away ever so softly, and Orthan found himself mimicking the end of the sage's oft-repeated phrase by himself in a sudden silence. Fearfully he looked up. The sage's eyes were grinning, even if his mouth was not. Wordlessly, Elminster pointed to the other end of the long, hard bundle, sighing. Orthan took it up. Under the rolls of cloth it felt like a scabbarded sword. Orthan wondered briefly what famous magical blade he was carrying, and then decided he'd really rather not know. The old mage grinned at him, as if reading his mind. Orthan rolled his eyes again, and had to laugh when he saw that Elminster was doing it too, in unison. Delmare smiled warily and rubbed red-rimmed eyes. At last, ahead and trees rolled back and the sun shone on the fair green valley. A weathered rocky height rose on the left, the old skull he'd been told about, no doubt, and the road came to a bridge over the river Ashaba. He had reached Shadowdale, and before a high feast too. He grinned at the bright morning all around and noticed with that thought that the line of floating teacups had vanished. He had the only one left in his hand. He shivered, and then shrugged wearily and went on. Ahead on the bridge stood guards in gleaming chainmail. The silver and blue arms of the Shadowdale shone proudly on the breasts of the surcoats as they lowered their spears in warning. One came forward to meet him, and eyed around a hand. Well met, Drannor Rallyhorn, she said calmly, bowing. You are welcome in Shadowdale, and expected at the tower by Lord Morgrim. I am? Delmare asked, blinking. The card captain grinned at the dumbfounded face and said gently, Elminster told you be coming. Worry not, he has the power to astonish all of us still, and we live here. Beyond her, Delmare nods and grins in agreement as the spears rose upright again in smooth unison. Ah, my thanks, he managed to say. Do I go straight there? He waved at the twisted tower, visible now behind the last trees on the side of the river, rising in front of the old skull. There seemed to be a lot of folk wandering about near market day. The guard captain smiled. It's the best way to reach it, she said, chuckling. Good fortune, Delmare. I am Elassa Thinthril. Enjoy your visit. Delmare nodded in a sort of daze and found himself on the path to the tower. There he remembered the teacup and saucer in his hand, wrapped in his hand rag against the road dust. Ah, I was handed this on the road, he said, turning back to Elassa and unwrapping his burden. By a lady. The last of a group of warriors, riding west as if to war. Alassa looked down at what he held and smiled. Give it to Lord Morgrim. When you see him, he'll be happy to get it back. You met the knights of Myth Draenor on the road, riding west to speak with your king. Oh, was all Drannor could find to make an answer. He shook his head and turned towards the tower. At its doors he found his way barred by two men. One was stooped, nondescript figure in an old patched cloak, its hood thrown forward to cover his face. The other was a tall, broad-shouldered, grimly dangerous warrior, magnificent armor, with an even more magnificent moustache, bristling gray in the bright sun as his cold eyes drilled into Drannor. The cow figure pointed. That's him! Drannor hadn't even time to draw a breath before the warrior's hand shot out and gripped his arms with fingers that felt like immovable stone. How do you know we can trust him? Thurball, captain of arms, foreshadowed their minister feat of squinting suspiciously at Drannor and glaring his question at the cowed man at the same time. But then, there was this little old veteran seemed incapable of. And the cowed man shrugged. My magic, of course. I'd not let him here if I thought him unsuitable. Thurball sighed. Alright. What, boy? Drannor had swallowed noisily and now managed to find his voice. You led me? The teacups? The hood nodded. Aye. How? Boy, Thurball began. Never ask. A wave of the old man's hand brought instant silence. Out of the shadows under the hood, a bearded mouth smiled at Drannor. A simple spell from my days as an apprentice. It's known as Elminster's traveling teacups, of course. Drannor stared at him, round-eyed. You? Elminster? He didn't wait for a reply, but promptly fainted, teacup clattering as he toppled. Thurball looked down at him and then again at the old mage. Are you sure this is unsuitable for the god? Wherever have you been, Lord? The people had been asking since the horn sounded at sunrise. Orlindia's voice was shrill. The militia cannot parade without you. Until the parade is done, the archery contest cannot begin, nor the quarterstaff bouts or javelin throws. They, in turn, hold up the high sun quaff, and we simply cannot. Mistress Orlindia, Morgrim began, raising his hand in entreaty. Aye, but she plunged and unabated. Have the tracking and stalking contests in the dark. The day will be ruined, and all because you wandered off when your people needed you most. I've never known such irresponsibility in you before, my lord, nor in any lord I've seen or heard of for that matter, and Orlindia, Morgrim said louder. A fine example you set for the young man. I must say, what will the lords of the Dale think when they hear of it? What will they say? Shadowdale's proud net. Orlindia, Morgrim said sternly. I think we've all heard enough. He smiled placidly. As you say, the day draws on, and all we are waiting for me. I've had some business to attend to, and I see you managed very capably to muster them in the meadow. Let me dress and I'll... He moved to the stairs, but the rest of the soothing words were lost in Orlindia's spirited response. Her double chins quivered in indignation. The gods know someone must manage in the face of your neglect. It is, after all, the prerogative and accomplishment of my position. You'd hardly expect me not to muster the man, I trust. And how did you manage to get mud all over you on days of like these? Orlindia, Morgrim muttered to the door as he closed it firmly before them. You'd never understand. When a moment later she hammered on the door to tell him to hurry, he found that the broken blade he'd taken from Ellen's side was still in his hand. Thoughtfully and heartfully, he held it at the closed doors. Unfortunately, the catch he'd set prevented Orlindia from opening the door in time to make a direct acquaintance with the whirling hilt. It crashed heavily and harmfully against the armor plates, bolted to the inside of the panels, and crushed to the floor. The Lord of Shadowdale heard her outraged gasp outside and chuckled. His manservant, old Martham, kept his face carefully expressionless as he held out her fresh tunic. Morgrim chuckled again.